Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Meanwhile Here on Earth. This program features in-depth conversations with the leading names in the subjects of UFOs, abductees, the paranormal, panel discussions, and the very best and brightest of the next generation of writers and researchers. Meanwhile Here on Earth, the show breaking new ground in alternative talk with your intrepid host, veteran investigative writer and researcher, Peter Robbins.
And a big thank you to my producer, Mr. Race Hobbs, and my dear friend Albert Bouchard, who writes that theme music that we hear Race's mellifluous voice scored to. This is Meanwhile Here on Earth. My name is Peter Robbins, and it is hopefully where you are too, a beautiful midsummer afternoon or early evening. I have two guests tonight, one in the first hour and one in the second. Born and raised near Asbury Park, New Jersey, Dan Harary, which rhymes with Ferrari, now is a longtime resident of Beverly Hills, California, and is best known for his 40-plus years in Hollywood as an entertainment industry publicist and is owner of the boutique Asbury Public Relations Agency. During the course of his long public relations career, Dan has worked with hundreds of famous celebrities from the fields of movies, TV, rock, and pop music. In 1970, Dan and his father, an electronics engineer for the United States Army, had a major UFO sighting in New Jersey. Following his father's death in 2017, Dan recalled that encounter and was inspired to write an original science fiction novel, which we will be talking about, entitled After They Came. The book has been embraced by many leading members of the global UFO research and UFO media communities. Dan also experienced two other UFO events. In 1996, high in the sky above the Lancaster, California desert, he saw a bright white ball of light quickly travel from one end of the sky to the other, then stop, then reverse its course by returning to its point of origin. And in 2008, while spending a weekend at James Gillian's ECETI Ranch in Washington State during a UFO conference, Dan and hundreds of other attendees witnessed a bright lime green UFO suddenly appear overhead, blink its lights on and off, then disappear. Dan is a longtime member of the Los Angeles chapter of MUFON, and in addition to After They Came, is the author of a 2022 Hollywood memoir entitled Flirting With Fame. A Hollywood publicist recalls 50 years of celebrity encounters, which was covered by major media outlets across the country, including Newsweek, the New York Daily News, the Village Voice, the Los Angeles Times, the Hollywood Reporter, and the LA Weekly. Dan Harary, welcome back to Meanwhile Here on Earth.
Here I am. Thank you, Peter. That's very sweet. Thank you very much. You know, since the little bio that you just read, which I supplied to you maybe last year, I had a fourth UFO encounter, Peter, last year. So I've seen.
Fill us in, if you don't mind.
Yeah, 4. And the fourth one was rather remarkable. It was on the last night at Contact in the Desert last year. Contact in the Desert 2024. As you know, I'm the director of PR and media relations for Contact in the Desert the last 2 years. So last year, 2024, the last night of the event, we had a CE5 out there by the open grass area. I forget what the name of that field is. It's to the left of the swimming pool. And we had there was a gentleman from Australia with a microphone who led the CE5, and there were about 200. I'd say about 200 people in a large oval.
May I just cut in to ask about what time in the evening this is?
Oh, I tell you exactly. It started at 8 p.m.
Okay, keep going.
I'll tell you why I remember the time. So 200 people, palm trees, crystal clear night. It's Palm Springs, gorgeous, not a cloud in the sky. 200 people. So we're standing in like a large oval holding hands. And the guy in the middle and I don't remember his name. He's fairly well known, Australian guy with a microphone. And we're all looking up, and he's going like this. Oh, space brothers, we love you. Please show yourselves. Please come down to Earth. We want to communicate with you. We have open minds and open hearts. Everyone here loves you. We all believe. We all know you're real. Please, please, please. It would mean so much to us to please show yourselves. So, Peter, this was very, very cool, right? So from 8 to 10 p.m., no, that 2 hours, that's a long time, okay, to be standing, holding hands with strangers and looking up, because you know this better than me. Your neck really hurts after 2 hours, right? So we're standing from 8 to 10. We're standing up. No, okay, and oh, space brothers, right? So I'm thinking, this is, you can't just summon them. This is very lovely. Everyone here has a good heart. You can't just summon them. Then the guy goes, you're probably tired of standing. If you want to lay on the grass and look up and just send up goodwill and good vibrations into the sky and invite our space brothers to come and reveal themselves. I said, okay, that's fine. So now I'm laying on the grass from 10 to 10:30 p.m. Okay, looking up, beautiful night. It's warm. I'm relaxing. It's very nice. I'm like, this is such a sweet thing. You can't summon this kind of thing, man. There's no way anything's going to happen. Here's where the story gets funny. So Peter, I swear to God, I looked at my watch. Now it's 10:30 p.m. I had to wake up at like 4 in the morning the next morning for an early meeting at the hotel. I said to myself, and this, I swear this is true, I said to myself, if I don't see a UFO in the next 5 minutes, I'm going to bed. I said that to myself. Okay. Suddenly in the sky above us, boom, there's a boom, not a huge boom, a medium boom. Look up directly above our heads. There was suddenly a very dark gray, small dark gray cloud of smoke or cloud. It just appeared. It just literally appeared. It was dark gray. And then Peter, I swear on my daughter's life, this is a true story. Out of the cloud, a white V like Victor craft slowly came out of this cloud. It had rounded tips. The one I saw with my dad was metallic with metal, with sharp tips. Rounded tips, white V, beautiful white. It looked like vanilla ice cream, white, bright white, with a ribbon. It had a ribbon of color through it, of gold. It looked like vanilla ice cream with a caramel ribbon. And here's the best part. As it's going over our heads, and I'm telling you this is true, under each of the two wings were three octopus pods, 3 and 3. They were pulsating. They were lit up. They were translucent. They had like veins in them. And they were like this. Boom, 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 boom.
Whoa.
Boom, boom. 3 and 3, 6. So I said to the guy next to me, I said, whatever that thing is, it's alive. It looked like a mechanical craft that had melded with a biological entity of some kind.
Android, yeah.
That looked to me, and I'm telling you, they were octopus suction pods. Now, no one believes this story, but I swear to God, this is true. And I don't know how to explain that one.
You've got quite a few witnesses with you at this moment.
Well, everyone clapped and applauded, and then everyone just scattered to the breeze, and we went back to the hotel. I didn't say to anyone, "Hey, wasn't that great? Did you get it?" No one. Now, of course, I had my phone in my hand, and I could have taken a picture. but now, having seen 4 UFOs, even if you have a camera, and I had camera for the third UFO, I didn't. When this happens, it's so remarkable.
Well, that's it. You're in full experience. You're not going into
use the camera. Yeah,
exactly.
Right. That's right.
Can you? And I know it's difficult sometimes. Either give us a guesstimate of about how large you thought it might be, or about how far away from you it might be. Sometimes, again, it's especially when you're filled with wonder, it's difficult to be objective. But any sense of either of those numbers?
I would say it was no larger than a Volkswagen, and maybe 400 feet above us.
That's impressive.
And it went fairly slow, Peter, because I saw it in great detail. I'm going to say 12 seconds, and then it vanished. It vanished. So that's my fourth one. So next time I do your show a year from now, maybe I'll have another one. But it was remarkable. Now, here's the thing, right? I said to myself, if I don't see a UFO in 5 minutes, I'm going to leave. And someone asked me recently, Dan, did you summon it? I didn't summon, really, come on. Did I summon it? Who knows? Now, here's what's funny. In 2008, the lime green UFO I saw with a girlfriend, I said to her, this was after 3 days and nights of nothing. I said to her, Barbara, I had my car keys in my hand that time. I said, Barbara, if we leave right now, we can beat all this traffic. And when I said that, the lime green UFO showed up. It was a huge black craft with a lime green light underneath, and it lit up, and it lit all of us up with Morse code, green light with Morse code. So I said to her that time, if we leave right now, we can beat the rush. And then the last year, I said to myself, I'm going to bed. So did I summon those two UFOs? Maybe. I don't know. You tell me. I don't know.
Dan, after they came, is such a unique take on the non-human presence, and the way that you came to write it. Of course, I know the story because you've shared it with me, but it not only involves this sighting you had with your father, but as we sometimes do, we half remember, we put things out of our mind, we take the significance away from them, we repress them. After your dad passed in 2017, you re-evaluated, you rethought out, you re-reviewed this memory. And the result had to be pretty massive, because the commitment to write a book like that, doesn't just happen for no reason. Can you tell us the genesis of the story? First, how old were you? Did you have, at that point in your childhood already, an interest in this? Did you really have some idea of what your dad did for the United States Army? And how did it all come together later and resulted again in starting to write this book?
Great questions. Thank you. And even beyond the book, Peter, it led to my creating the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance and being the publicist for Contact in the Desert and getting my own podcast and launching the WOW Signal. All of these things go to my father. So that's a great setup, and I appreciate it. I'll give you the what's it called? When you had those books in high school, the cheap
synopsis.
Books. Those cheap books, crib notes or something. There's a
Cliff
term
notes.
Cliff notes. I'll give you the Cliff notes. That's exactly
fair enough.
There you go. All right. So I grew up in suburban New Jersey. In March 1970, I was 13 years old. My father drove me home one day from school. It was a sunny afternoon, maybe 3:00 in the afternoon. I'm in my father's car. I look through the windshield of the car. We're in my neighborhood.
How old are you?
13. A few months shy of 14. And we're in the neighborhood that I lived on for many, many years. We're driving. I look through, but Dad and I were talking. I looked through the windshield. A huge, huge silver V, like Victor craft, was hovering above my father's car. And I looked through the windshield. I said, Dad, stop the car. There's a UFO. Stop. You got to stop the car. We stopped the car. And you know the story, but I'm going to do the quick version.
Please.
We got out. We stood in front of the car. Now, Peter, this one was huge. This was not like the octopus vanilla ice cream. This was like this was like an airplane, right? This was like a 747. This was
okay.
Big,
commercial. Yeah.
It was a big, shiny silver metal thing. It had sharp tips, a V with sharp tips, no sound, no smoke, no propellers, no lights, nothing, just hanging above my father's car. Now, if you and I saw this together, Peter, we'd be like, oh my God, we'd be dancing, we'd be dancing the horror. It'd be, okay, so I'm jumping up and down. I'm 13. This is 1970. And I go, Dad, look, isn't this cool? Dad, it's Star Trek. Dad, it's Star Trek. Look. And my father looked at it, bored to tears, couldn't care less, no expression whatsoever, Peter. He wasn't afraid.
Completely illogical reaction for you, for most of us.
Illogical. Right. Oh, yeah, it can't be explained. He wasn't afraid. He wasn't in. I was enthralled. He wasn't in. He was nothing. He was just nothing. Okay. So 2 minutes. I'm going to say 2 minutes. We're looking at the eighth wonder of the world hovering above my father's car, and my father goes, "Come on, Danny. Let's go home." Really? Now, wouldn't you and I stay there till the end of time, till this thing disappeared? We left. So get in the car, and I just remembered fairly recently, the V followed the car for another block or two. I remember that more recently. And then it just very silently went off into the distance and vanished. Okay, fine. 1970, rotary telephone. I run into my house. I call the Asbury Park Press newspaper. Hi, my name is Danny. I'm 13. I saw a UFO with my father. The lady said, Sonny, I can't talk to you now. We're getting hundreds of phone calls about this. I have to go. I'm very sorry. I have to go. I literally, those are her words, because I remember it clearly. She hung up on me. No story ever ran in the paper. I looked, okay? Now, I forgot all about that, Peter, entirely for 47 years. And people have asked me why. The reason, now here's a couple of tidbits. Why? One, my dad and I never, ever
talked about it.
Never, ever. We never told my mother or my brothers, or I never told any friends. I just, it cleared my mind as soon as it happened. Within A to Z was what, half hour? And that was it.
And now you know this is part of the pattern that happens extraordinarily often and completely out of any sense of reality, but keep going.
Right. It makes no sense. Now, why? The big picture, honestly, I had just gotten my drum set for my bar mitzvah, okay? I'm a drummer. We were talking offline. I've been a drummer since I'm 10. I was in rock bands, Peter. I was going to see, in fact, Ozzy just passed. Ozzy was the second rock concert I ever saw in my life.
Oh, my gosh.
The first was Iron Butterfly doing In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida. So I'm going to rock concerts. I'm playing drums in rock bands, and I'm chasing after little girls that I'm too shy to talk to. Okay, so I'm not aliens and UFOs. It's not in my brain. It simply was not there, okay? So now we jump to 2017. My father died in Florida. He was 86, bad death. He died with his second wife in Florida, bad death. 3 days, now I'm here in LA, and they sent his ashes up. So I said goodbye to him a few months before he passed. I'm here in LA. 3 days after my dad died, I went to Junior's Deli, a famous deli near UCLA.
Sure.
To get a pastrami sandwich in my father's honor, because my father and I used to love, right, to eat pastrami, you know, like nice Jewish boys, right?
You're kidding? Of course.
Of course. So here's where my life turned in a new direction forever. And you know the story, and it's absolutely true, and I've told the story all over the world. I went to get a pastrami sandwich. The waiter walked away. A beam of light or energy hit me in the head like knuckles on someone's fist. Hard. And I still remember the feeling. It was like knock, knock. And then I felt like a jolt of electricity shoot through my brain. And then through my eyes was projected 8 to 10 inches in front of my face in the air at the deli. Like this, perfectly rectangular, 3D, color, high-def home movie with audio of my 1970 UFO sighting with my father. 47 years later, it played at the deli. Okay, now I'm watching it. Now you can imagine my hands, Peter, my hands are shaking, my heart's racing, and I'm like, oh my God, I remember that event. It looked like God had been the cameraman because and people have said to me it was a memory. Peter, it wasn't a memory. I'm in the movie. It's the car, me, my dad, and the V. I'm in the movie. It's not from my eyes. I saw myself say, Dad, it's Star Trek. I saw that. Okay, so I'm shaking. I'm like, what is happening here?
Are you alone?
Yeah, the place was empty.
Boy.
The waiter was getting my sandwich. I know. Would have been cool. Would have been cool if anyone else saw this. I don't even think anyone else could have. I think it was just for me. This time, when my dad was bored, he looked down at me, and he was bored again. Looked at me. He winked at me and said, "Come on, kid, Danny. Come on." Whatever he said. Let's go home. Okay, so 20 seconds at the most, Peter. It was like God had been the cameraman filming this scene. It was perfectly framed, you know. It was like a high-def television in the air. So then it pixelated. It just went like into dust. It pixelated. It went away, vanished. Now I'm shaking. I'm thinking, oh my God, I can't believe I forgot that. Then I heard, because I am clairaudient, in my right ear, get a pen, get a pen, get a pen. You need a pen, you need a pen, get a pen, get a pen. I asked my waiter for a pen. I did automatic writing on the placemat. My hand write a book about benevolent aliens. Lead character's father knew about UFOs. And then I wrote capital A, capital T, capital C. My hand stopped moving. I've never done automatic writing before or since. Now I'm shaking with this paper.
Yeah.
And after a couple of minutes, Peter, you know, it just ATC after they came. It came to me. So I said to myself, I just wanted a sandwich. I'm hungry. Now I have to write a book about benevolent aliens. Lead character's father knew about UFOs. Whose father had just died, Peter? Mine. 3 days earlier, right? Now, I believe now that my father sent that little movie to me from heaven. I truly do. I believe it was a special gift. It was a parting gift from my father, may he rest in peace, to me 3 days after he died. Okay, I raced home. I started writing my book. And the book is about benevolent aliens who come to Earth in the near future to save mankind, solve all the problems we all have, working through this one schmucky guy in the beginning of the book who's suicidal.
Yep.
And I call it It's a Wonderful Life meets The Day the Earth Stood Still. Okay, now, who was my father? That's the whole beauty of the whole story. As I'm writing the book, I wrote the book from April 2017 to April 2018. It took me exactly 1 year to write. As I'm writing the book, I call my mother. Now, my mother, Peter, is going to be 91 in October. She's still alive, God bless her. I called her. I said, Mom, did Dad ever talk about UFOs? Now, she told me a story I had never heard before, and this is a very telling story. My mother said, in the early 1960s, they took your father deep into the vault. My father worked at Fort Monmouth Army Base, top secret Army base, and I'm going to get to that in a second.
And that's in New Jersey.
In New Jersey, not far from Asbury Park, just one town down. It was called Belmar. In the early 60s, they took your father down into the vaults at Fort Monmouth, and they showed him something highly top secret. My mother said my father came home from work that day, very upset, pale, shaking, and nervous, almost crying. My mother said to my father, honey, what's wrong? My father said, Peter,
I
to my
can't tell
mother,
you what's the secret.
I saw something today in the vault. I can never tell you or anyone. This is to my mother. I can never tell anyone as long as I live. And Peter, he never did. My mother said, your father was never the same after that day. Okay, that's clue number one. And I'm going to do this quickly because we have time. Okay, clue number two. A few days after my father died, I went through my old scrapbooks to look at photos of my father and to cry because I loved him very much.
Yes.
Peter, I found this, Peter, this orange thing in one of my scrapbooks.
Yeah.
This is a profile of my father from 1985 from his workplace.
Oh, my.
And in this paper, it says that my father invented laser-guided drones for the Army. It says that here in my hand. The first test ever was at White Sands in 1975. My father supervised the first ever test of a laser-driven drone that had destroyed an enemy tank on the ground. So my father was a physicist, electronics engineer for Fort Monmouth for 45 years. Okay, so keep that in mind. Okay, next. Also, when I'm writing after they came, I was reading Richard Dolan's famous book.
That's the first volume.
This famous book, yep. In fact, at Contact, I introduced him at one of his talks. That was a lot of fun for me. I like Richard very much.
Yeah.
In the back of this book, Richard, is a glossary of UFO sightings above U.S. military bases going back to the 40s.
Correct.
In 1951 and 1952, there were two UFO sightings detected on radar above Fort Monmouth, New Jersey. My father had just started working there then. My father worked in the radar division at Fort Monmouth for 45 years. If he hadn't heard about the UFOs, there's something very wrong. Of course he did. Of course he did. Okay, next. I recently read this book, just recently, Fort Monmouth, the U.S. Army's House of Magic.
Great.
Where my father worked, Peter, they invented radar, they invented FM radio, they invented weather and TV satellites, walkie-talkies, night vision, air-to-ground audio for airplanes, drones, and hundreds of other items for the Army, many of which then became consumer goods, like FM radio, for example. Okay? That's where my father worked for 45 years, top secret. Okay. Next is, Stephen Greer. 2 years ago, Stephen Greer did a press conference on TV. I watched it. He showed a slide of 150 U.S. military bases that Stephen Greer has proof of through his whistleblower network that worked on reverse engineering of UFO technology. Okay, so we all have a big TV. I freeze framed this slide, Peter, that he had on from his press conference from the Washington Press Club. And I went up with my finger, 150 U.S. military bases that worked on reverse engineering. Number 51 on Stephen Greer's list, Fort Monmouth, New Jersey. Okay, and here's the last one. This I just read also recently. This is about Joe McCarthy trying to weed out communists from the U.S. Army. It's called McCarthy, Monmouth, and the Deep State. In this book, it says that my father's workplace, the radar branch at Fort Monmouth, worked with Project Blue Book. Okay, so you put all that together. When my father saw a UFO drone, whatever that was, he knew what it was. He might have been involved with it. He might have seen it tested at White Sands. My mother said he went to White Sands all the time. So it explains why my father had no reaction, right? It explains the wink, Peter. And then if my father sent me the movie from heaven, my father was telling me, Danny, I couldn't tell you my whole life what I did for a living, but I'm dead now. No more NDAs. Remember the UFO that we saw together that day? I was part of that. That's why I am where I am today.
You know, Dan, when we discussed this the first time, I shared with you something relative to my remembering.
I remember. I remember your story, yeah.
And for our viewers, I want to confirm some very particular aspects of what you've said. And I'm probably one of only a handful of people that can do it from experience, which was the UFO sighting that I had that had such a profound impact on my life years later happened when I was 14 with another witness, my sister Helen, who was 12.
I remember it was your sister. I remember, right.
And very simply stated, it was simply too much for me. There was no ambiguity. There were 5 silvery white disc-shaped objects in a V formation. Wow. They were close enough to make out regular detailing around the edge of each, which we could only read as windows. And to compress the story, I simply couldn't deal with it. I was not a sophisticated 14-year-old. This was the early 1960s. If anything, I would compare my level of sophistication to Jerry Mathers in Leave It to Beaver. And, okay. You know, my picture of the world was very simple. And I was growing up in a really special, lovely little village about 30 miles east of Manhattan. And this so challenged my thinking, ultimately having to say to myself, you have to question everything that you thought you knew now, because you knew up until a moment ago by intuition from the adult world that this is fantasy. And I would say within a week or two, I managed to completely put it out of my mind. In my case, for a little over 14 years as opposed to 40. And what brought it back was a different kind of trigger. My grandmother had saved many of my childhood drawings, something parents usually didn't do back then. Now,
Okay.
of course, they do. And I guess when I was in my late 20s, she gave me this portfolio of several dozen drawings. I was an aspiring painter. I was teaching at the School of Visual Arts, showing my work.
Okay.
It was an epiphany. And my girlfriend at the time worked in advertising, the old analog days, layouts, paste ups, acetates, non-crawl ink, that kind of stuff. And she had a big roll of acetate left over from the job, and she did something quite wonderful for me as a gift. She cut it up and used black electrical tape, and each drawing, many of them, really fragile manila paper or something from elementary school.
Sure.
I had pulled them out to start to look at them, and was going through them one at a time on the floor of my loft. And there was no subject matter relative to the sighting, but it was a series of drawings I had done probably within a month or two, 3 months, having to do with space travel, but, real Mercury astronaut level, nothing, paranormal.
Okay.
And the way I described it was like a transition moment. And then all of a sudden, this tape loop was running through my mind in full color. Everything that I remembered, I couldn't stop it, and I was overcome. First thing I thought to myself is, you're having some kind of mental episode or something here, because even as it hit me, the first realization was, of course this happened. This is the most extraordinary thing that I ever saw in my life. What's going on right now? Because my logical mind is saying there is no way you could have ever forgotten this. Therefore, the fact that you're remembering it now, you're in uncharted territory. And I really just kind of broke down on the floor there and started to cry. I just was overloaded and I couldn't stop it. It just kept rolling. And after a few minutes, I calmed down. I washed my face. I made a cup of tea. And I thought words to the effect of, now what the do I do? And it was immediately obvious to me. I had a witness. I was living down in East Chinatown in Manhattan. My sister was in the East Village, a little mile north of me. And I cold called her and asked her what she was doing. It was a good time to talk. I told her, thankfully, I'd thought this out a little bit beforehand, that I had had a memory returned to me from childhood that I thought she might remember. And I needed her verification. But I thought, if I tell her my memory, she'll say yes or no. And I'll never know for sure any details new. So I started to set the scene down. The weather, the time of day, where we were standing in relation to each other in front of the house. She stopped me mid-sentence. And she just started to talk. And she described everything I remembered about them, with the exception she wasn't sure whether it was 5 or 6, which we worked out very quickly the next day with the first UFO painting I did in my life, which was right after I got off the phone with her, where I painted 6, knowing there were 5. So when she came over the next day, I could show it to her with my hand over that and take it off. And in fact, she said 5. And one would think, wow, well, I understand now why you got so interested. No, I think if that had been it, I would have been just one of many millions of people in the world doing what they had intended to do, hopefully, and having a really interesting sense of the subject of UFOs, or maybe, a good amateur and following key researchers. But then she said, either there's more and you're not going to like it, there's more and I don't know how you're going to feel about it. And then proceeded to tell me these absolutely conscious partial memories of what we would now call absolute archetypes in countless abduction experiences, even word for word. And I'm listening to this, and for several seconds, I'm holding on to the idea, the thought, because it's preferable to the reality, oh my God, my sister's gone crazy. And then I catch myself, I laugh for a moment and think, 6 seconds ago, it was okay. having 5 flying saucers hanging over the Parker's house across the street. Listen to what your sister's saying. Of course, I had never heard of anything like this, UFO abductions. I didn't know there were UFO conferences. I knew no one who was interested. I wasn't interested. But I now was experiencing the first moments of a beloved career beginning to derail as this obsession filled my life. And it was an obsession for a number of years until I kind of got it under control, in part with a very good psychotherapist. But that moment, I know very few people, that description of it comes into your head. It happened. How could I have forgotten it? What we believe about the source of it, immaterial. As real for you, as real for me, as real for you and your dad as it was for my sister and I. And we are just 2 tiny examples of this kind of vignette. How has the book been doing, Dan?
The book came out in 2023, maybe 500 copies. It's hard. I'm not Howard Stern. I'm not Stephen, I'm not Stephen King. It's hard. I've sold it at UFO conferences.
Good.
I sell it on my podcast. People write to me for autographed copies.
Good.
Listen, the truth is I still have to work. I still work as a publicist to pay the bills. But it's been a very wonderful experience. Now, because of the book, as you know, when it came out, is when I met. By the way, it's out on audiobook, everyone. Help a struggling Beverly Hills publicist. After they came, it's now on audio on Amazon. It took me a year. It took me a year and a half to record it. I would love to know your thoughts about the recording of it. We're just pushing that now. So after my book came out, I met Stephen Bassett at a UFO conference in 2023. He and I became friends very quickly. We had a long lunch in Hollywood, and we came up with jointly the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance at the same time. And then 4 days later, Peter, was Contact 2023. And Race, you can kill that, actually, if you want to kill it. There you go. 4 days later was Contact 2023. Steve Bassett put me up in his room, and we told everyone in ufology. I don't think you were there. If you were, I didn't meet you then. I'm sorry to say, but we told everyone, and this is, Peter, it's so funny. We had 3 words. We had Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. We had 3 words. We didn't know what it was. We didn't have a website, a mission statement, a company. We didn't know what it was. We told everyone at Contact 23, every single person, George Norrie, Nick Pope, Richard Dolan, Paul Hynek, Ron Janix, Ron James, Katie Page, everyone, everywhere we went. Oh, I want to be a member of that. I want to do that. So it was so funny. We thought of it, and within a few days later, Peter, we had every top ufologist in the world wanted to be a member of it. Now, what is it? It took us all of 2023, Stephen and I, to figure out what was the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. He came up with, it's a networking group of 2 disparate groups of people, historically disparate, that we're blending together. I call it chocolate and peanut butter. One group are UAP, ET, UFO researchers, experiencers, and disclosure advocates. The other group are Hollywood writers, producers, directors, performers, content creators. The word Hollywood means the entertainment industry. It doesn't necessarily mean the city of Hollywood. So Stephen and I cut and paste everybody we knew. We put everybody into a pot. My daughter came up with the logo and the website. We launched November 1st, 2023. Today, we have 220 members around the world. We have several big stars like Shirley MacLaine, Thomas Jane, Dee Wallace, Donnie Ramirez, Michael Ian Black from CNN, Dave Foley. We have some names, and we do live events. We meet at the major conventions. We have a live chat room called the Slack channel. And Peter, what's happening there is that, let's say you are a documentarian looking for people who have met people from the Pleiades. Well, I actually have a friend named Mark who literally has friends from the Pleiades. So if you're a documentary filmmaker, you go into the HDA Slack channel. Does anyone here know anything about the Pleiades? Well, then my friend Mark would write back, yeah, I've been meeting with them since I'm 5 years old. It's a networking group. Our mission is to help nurture the next era of films, TV shows, and documentaries based on real experiences of real people and with people who have the ability to get a story on the screen. And what I've been saying lately is for every Betty and Barney Hill, Travis Walton, and the guys from Pascagoula, for those, the famous ones, there are probably even years, right? Tens of thousands of remarkable stories all over the world that have never been told, never been expressed. What I've been saying in interviews lately to people and my colleagues and friends, tell people your stories, share your stories. You know, it's like if you're gay and you never told your family, right? It's comparable. Come out, share your stories, tell your friends, your relatives. Go join the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance.org. There's a button that says join. And then that leads to my other new venture, which is called the wowsignal.news.
Let's talk about that a bit.
Sure. I launched the wowsignal.news with my daughter in March this year. It's only 4 months old. The Wow Signal, when I met Steve Bassett 2 years ago, I said, where do you guys, meaning you ufologists, where do you guys go? What central newspaper, magazine, TV show, website, where do you go for your news? He goes, Dan, there is no such thing. Right? So Peter, I go, really? This is 2 years ago. So for 2 years, now I've been a Hollywood publicist for 42 years. What does a publicist do? A publicist matches someone with a message with someone in the media. That's what I've been doing my whole entire career. So for 2 years, I said, how do I create the ultimate, New York Times for ufology? That's what I'm calling it now. It should only be. So I came up with the wowsignal.news. It's the perfect name. Once again, my daughter created the logo and the website. She's gifted. And I'm the publisher editor. We get news, Peter. It's been remarkable. We get news from all over the world all the time. I get news. I get press releases, photos, book reviews, videos, guest opinion columns. In fact, I'll make this offer to you right now, Peter. If you ever have a guest opinion column, you send it to me. It goes up on the Wow Signal. So people have been like, Dan, what about this? So I've been getting this remarkable content. So every Monday, like today, we put the newest news up. The website is thewowsignal.news, thewowsignal.news. Check it out. And then every Thursday, my daughter culls the news from the Mondays. Every Thursday, we then cull it into a newsletter. And the newsletter goes out around the world. We've been embraced by MUFON. This weekend, I'm going to confirm that Danny Sheehan's New Paradigm Institute is going to become a media partner with the Wow Signal. If you go to the Wow Signal, if you look at our media partners, in fact, Margie Kay's on X Network. Our friend Margie, she's a media partner. So what's happening is I'm getting news from all our media partners, all the HDA members, and then just stray people. Peter, I'll get someone from Greece. Someone from Greece will say, "Hey, did you know the Wow Signal was a musical melody?" I go, "Really?" So I ran that. So I get news from all of them, and then conversely, these different media partners then send out our newsletter, or they post about us on social media. It's all barter. I promote people with news. People with news promote the Wow Signal. It's all barter. Probably next year I'm going to start, because I have to make some money on this thing. Next year I'll probably go to a subscription model, probably $5 or $10 a month, but not yet. And it's been a phenomenon, man. It's been really a joy, and it gives me a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun for me to do it.
What do you see coming at us over the next year or so in terms of either the potential for full disclosure or the continuation of the process? It's not like, you have government connections, but you are in an industry that to such an increasing amount, more and more folks are interested, in part because it sells seats where everyone happens to be, at home or in the theater, and because politically, we all know this has the potential to be the most singularly important issue that we'll be dealing with in the future of humanity. Any intuition on how things are rolling along and where all the work that you're doing kind of fits in and will continue to?
Great questions. Personally, and I've had this talk with several people, I won't name them because I don't want to get them in trouble, but
sure.
Recently, myself and several people that you know instantly have said capital D disclosure from President Trump, the new Pope, Putin, Netanyahu, the King of England, not going to happen anytime soon.
Yep.
It's just not going to happen anytime. Don Ecker sent me an article, Peter. It ran last week on WOW. It said why disclosure will never, ever happen from Don Ecker. It was like a 5-page essay he wrote for me. The reason being, the more I think about this, what gain would President Trump have? What gain would the Pope? Now, I was thinking the new Pope, he would be the most neutral character, in my opinion. He's American. He's the Pope. Millions, if not billions, of people would respect. The Vatican knows about extraterrestrial life. Years ago, they said, we believe there's probably life on other planets, and if so, God made them, and we're all brothers. Well, that's lovely. I mean, that's exactly the way to think about it.
Yeah.
Unless they're here to kill us and eat us, then that's a whole other story. But anyway, it seems to me the best person on the planet Earth to do disclosure would be the Pope. They'd be the least pushback. It'd probably be the most respect, the most interest. You know, President Trump, and I have no words for my feelings about him, so I won't go there. But if he did it, half of America would say, oh, he's just deflecting because he's on the Jeffrey Epstein list. Of course he's on the Jeffrey Epstein list. Could anything be more obvious? It's the most obvious thing in the history of the planet Earth. He's a pedophile, most likely. Anyway, I didn't say that. Anyway, I don't think capital D disclosure is happening anytime soon.
I think that's actually a really sensible guess.
About the Pope.
So many of us non-Catholics came to learn about him with respect and admiration. He has lived his faith from the ground up for decades, and
yeah. I think any pope, it doesn't matter if you're Jewish or Islam, a pope is a respected figure historically. A pope is a respected figure.
But some personally warrant it more than others, like any world leader, religious or secular. That's very worthy of consideration. In the meantime,
I have something else to add to this. So
please.
So that's on the political side of things. Now, I'm a Hollywood guy. Next year, I'm sure you know this, next year, Steven Spielberg's next movie is called Disclosure.
Yep.
I was with Steve Bassett that day when it was announced. We were having lunch at Factor's Deli down the street from my house. Peter, you never saw a 78-year-old man do a little dance. Dan, Steven Spielberg's next movie is Disclosure. He goes, we did it. I mean, Peter, he was so excited. I'm like, hold on. Let's see. Next year, June. Disclosure Spielberg. Huge. Now, does it mean that it's going to influence Congress like Oliver Stone's JFK movie did in 93? Oliver Stone's JFK movie led to the JFK Disclosure Act. That's huge. Will Spielberg's movie do that? Maybe. If anyone can do it, it's our buddy Steven. Also next year, another movie is coming out called The Dish. It's from Jerry Bruckheimer, a very, very, very famous, prominent producer. He did all the Top Gun movies and the Bad Boy movies and Armageddon and huge. Jerry Bruckheimer. Do you know, Peter, who is the science advisor? This is going to blow your mind. Who is the science advisor to Jerry Bruckheimer on the movie The Dish? Take a guess. I'm sorry, the UFO advisor.
Dan Sheehan?
That's a good guess. David Grush. David Grush is advising on a major Hollywood movie. How about that?
Again, a major whistleblower. And
major whistleblower. Now, probably everything he reveals had to get cleared or something. Unless, unless Jerry Bruckheimer's a billionaire. Maybe he set up Grush, in Hawaii, with like electric fences, and then David, tell me everything, and no one can get, you know what I mean? Think about that. Like, because if Grush told him what he really knew, and it's on a screen, so between The Dish and Spielberg next year, huge. Both of those things, huge. As we're trudging along now, this, there was supposed to be a congressional hearing this past weekend. Didn't happen. It's pushed to September 1st, I think. They keep kicking the can down the road. They keep kicking it. Yeah, there's extraterrestrial. Oh, yeah, really? Okay. We've already heard that from Grush and Lou Elizondo and Chris Mellon and so many other people have already said to Congress, yeah,
Danny,
this is real.
I know you're young. I know you're young in this, but you have to remember you're dealing with former intelligence agents. All of them down the line. Even Jesse Marcel.
Third? Jesse Marcel the third?
Jesse Marcel, his father.
You mean the grandpa?
Junior was not in intelligence. He was a doctor.
Junior was a doctor, right?
Yeah, but I mean, when you think about the government whistleblowers, and I'm doing air quotes here, you can't see me. Most of them are former intelligence agents or disinformation agents. So you have to be real careful. How much luggage you haul with these guys.
What about like Carl Nell? I mean, he said, yeah, there's aliens. How come he didn't get shot in the head?
What kind of evidence did he have to back up what he was saying?
Yeah, but look who he is, though.
It doesn't matter. Anybody can lie.
No, I don't know, man.
Well, also anybody can state their beliefs as fact and then essentially say, prove me wrong.
Yeah, Jim Callahan,
one of the conundrums of the work.
The senior FAA investigator. Callahan came with evidence to back up what he was saying. Those are the ones that you have to put up there and keep protected and keep out in the front. The one, because it looks to me like these guys that were in intelligence would have the wherewithal to know if they're going to come clean, they're going to need to bring some stuff with them.
Well, that's why David Grush got crucified, Race, after he testified. Well, did you see an alien? No. Did you touch a UFO craft? No.
Right. It's all down the road stuff.
I know. Yeah. That's the problem. Now, Bob said, we all know Bob Salas.
No, the problem is lack of physical evidence. That's the problem. We have plenty of people that say a lot of shit.
But the evidence is locked up tighter than God knows what. The grandchildren, the great-grandchildren of the Majestic 12, whoever runs the truth embargoes to this day, they ain't going to show an alien anytime soon, man. It's going to have to be pried out of their dead cold hand.
Jim Callahan, he had data tapes. He had video recordings of the radars. He had all the printouts, and the government told him, intelligence agents told him, we want everything you have. Did you make any copies? And he lied and said no, but he did. And he came forward with all of it, and he never got in trouble. If you come forward with evidence, real smoking gun evidence, what are they going to do? They've got to take you to court. They've got to arrest you. They've got to be hearings. There's going to be publicity.
If you come out in public, yes.
Yeah.
Public,
so.
Yeah.
My suggestion to any of these whistleblowers coming in the future, regardless what rock you come out from under, you need to bring some shit with you, because you're just going to get treated very badly like Mr. Gross. And I think he's a good man. And I think he is a very brave guy to come forward and say what he said and go on the record with what he said. But if I'm wrong, it's all planned, and that's the narrative that they want put out there.
Right.
And that's the government playing ball. You know what I mean? And they're sending us down the road they want us to go on. So we got to be real careful. Sorry to interrupt you, Peter.
No, perfectly okay. I like when you jump in, Race.
That's okay. Peter, I had a thing I thought about the other day from our Bob Salas, I'm sure.
Of course, dear friend.
Okay, so Bob's a friend of mine as well. Here's what I was thinking, right? Danny Sheehan and Steve Bassett for years and years have been wanting Bob Salas and the other nuclear witnesses to testify before Congress. Now, Bob is a great guy. He's 84. I think he's 84. God bless him. What does he have? 20 more years, right? So, I mean, you do it while he can still do it physically. Here's the thing. I was thinking about this the other day. Let's say Danny and Steve Bassett get Salas to testify on live TV Congress. And he talks about the Malmstrom shutdown, March 67, the huge orange-red orb that shut down 10 missiles, right? Peter, here's the problem. Let's say Representative Luna goes, Mr. Salas, with all due respect, did you see the UFO with your own eyes? No, I did not. Were you near it? Did you smell it? Could you watch it? Did you take them? No, the guys up on the, right? The guys above me, 20 stories above me on the ground, called me crying. Well, you didn't see it, you didn't hear it, you didn't taste it, touch it, feel it. So even someone like Bob could get thrown under a bus.
And believe it or not, we have smack run out of time.
Okay.
Dan, a pleasure having you back on. Folks that want to know more about Dan's book, Dan Harary, Harary, author.com. Stay well. We will be in touch.
Thanks, brother. It's always fun to be with you. Thanks.
And thank you, Dan.
Take care. Bye-bye.
5-minute break. See you with our next guest, John Russell, when we return.
If you want something fun to do with the family this summer, listen up. It's the ultimate celebration of the iconic sci-fi universes that have captured people's imaginations for generations. And it's taking place in Bonne Terre, Missouri. Special guests include a NASA astronaut, Disney artist, YouTube content creator, and characters from the Star Wars universe, also robots and world-class model builders. The Space Museum and Grissom Center in Bonne Terre presents its latest installment of Show Me Space 2025 with Show Me Sci-Fi Space on Saturday, June 28 from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. The Space Museum and Grissom Center is located at 118 East School Street in Bonne Terre. Call 573-358-1200 or visit space-mo.org. That's space-mo.
The new book, How to Research a Haunted House by paranormal investigator Margie Kay and professional researcher Violet Wisdom, is now available from Unex Media. This one-of-a-kind book explains how to do research on a house with uncommon methods and resources used by historic home researchers, and how to determine who may be doing the haunting and why. How to Research a Haunted House can be used by homeowners, renters, investors, and it should be in the library of all professional paranormal investigators. Get this unique book at unexmedia.com or amazon.com. That's unexmedia.com or amazon.com.
And welcome back to Meanwhile Here on Earth with me, your host, Peter Robbins, and our second guest for the evening. John Russell has been a professional psychic for 50 years. Internationally known, he has provided psychic readings for clients in over 40 countries and still reads for a worldwide audience, clientele. He has been a paranormal researcher and investigator since childhood and has experienced more than 1,000 paranormal manifestations of one sort or another. He is also a UFO experiencer. Over the decades, John has studied, investigated, and practiced an abundance of psychic and paranormal disciplines, including, but not limited to, psychometry, clairvoyance or remote viewing, seances, telekinesis, ghosts and hauntings, extrasensory perception, paranormal and UFO investigations, mediumship, tarot readings, healing, remote healings, and runes. John filmed a TV pilot for the History Channel in which he psychically explored the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln. The accuracy of his psychic insights, verified by the docents at the historic sites he explored, as well as production team members. I should say it's been some time since I had encountered the word docent, which sent me to the dictionary to be reminded that a docent is a person who is a knowledgeable guide, especially one who conducts visitors through a museum and delivers a commentary on the exhibitions. John has also stimulated paranormal activity on his own, some of which has been captured on film. For more than 18 years now, he's been a popular featured guest on radio shows and podcasts, both here and abroad, including 10 appearances to date on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. Russell is also the author of four multi-award-winning books: Riding with Ghosts, Angels and the Spirits of the Dead, A Knock in the Attic, The Crying Tree and the Magic Rock, and has reached the Barnes & Noble Top 100 Best-Selling Books list. John Russell, a pleasure to have you back on Meanwhile Here on Earth.
Peter, bless your heart. Thank you for having me. We always have such a great chat, and it's always such an honor to be here. I appreciate it so much.
Well, you're most welcome. You are in Florida, and I'm guessing it is a warm evening for you.
Well, at 7 p.m., we had 98 degrees with 111 heat index. Yeah.
That's the kind of day you want to stay indoors in that wonderful air-conditioned study you are in.
That's what I'm doing. That's exactly what I'm doing. Yeah, it's been pretty rugged. We've had heat advisories nearly every day. Heat indexes over 100 nearly every day. And what people don't understand, everybody thinks, okay, well, autumn's close. Autumn doesn't mean anything for Florida. We don't cool off until December. It doesn't actually start getting cool here until December. So while everybody else is going, oh, cooler temperatures, turning leaves, all this, we're like, no, just more sweat and grief.
John, as a career psychic, we reviewed some of your, childhood and history when you were a guest, but many of our viewers now probably did not watch that show. Yeah. Whenever I speak to a truly bona fide, legitimate psychic with a track record to prove it, one of the things I'm most curious about is, was this something that from early age you just knew or sensed about yourself and practiced, and at a certain point, perhaps through a parent or a loving relative, what you were doing or able to do was explained to you as not the norm and how you might want to move forward in life with it, or discovering it later in life? With you, can you tell us a bit, starting as a child, how this came together for you, and a little bit about your childhood to begin?
Yeah. Well, I had my paranormal awakening when I was 5. I write about that in A Knock in the Attic. An elderly black ghost came and opened up this portal to these paranormal manifestations. And then before around the age of 5.5 or 6, after beginning to experience these physical paranormal manifestations, I became aware of my psychic gift. And it was something that I knew was absolutely real. It was something that was very alienating to people, because I would talk to them about these manifestations and they would say, oh, you're making things up. Those things don't exist. Da, 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 da. Now, my family was not of that nature because my mother was a believer. My father was kind of a closet believer, and they experienced these physical manifestations. They saw these things. So they knew these things were real. I knew these things were real. And the interesting thing was even as a child, trying to discuss this with other people, and the religious mindset that was dead set against anything paranormal, or just the skeptical or cynical mindset that anything like that could exist. It was very off-putting to people to try and discuss that. So I learned early on to kind of keep my mouth shut, and to be very selective to whom I spoke about these things. And the thing for me that kept me moving forward was the reality of the experiences, because, like I say, they occurred on the physical realm. They were solid manifestations. Other people witnessed these things. Other people saw these things. And they were not trivial things. They were things that enabled me to understand and to know that there was this other side to life. There was this invisible dimension to life, and it was real, and it interacted with our dimension, and it provided evidence of life after death. It provided evidence of other beings like spirit guides, guardian angels. It provided evidence that our deceased loved ones lived on and saw us and interacted with us. And so that became a driving force for me, a motive force for me to investigate this, see how far I could take it. And once I was aware that I had the gift of this, being able to look into people's lives, past, present, and future, and to make accurate predictions that came true about their futures. Once I became aware of that, there was no way that I could take that and put it on the shelf or ignore it or minimize it. It was like, my God, this is what a tremendous thing here. All right, now what can I do with this? How can I get better with this? How can I separate fact from fiction and find the truth in this, find something that works, and make this thing get better? And so it was always a matter of being driven, of being led by this gift to go as deeply into it as I could. And I'm 71 years old now, and I'm still driven by that same passion. I'm still, how can I become more accurate? How can I push this thing to the edge of sanity? How can I get a better understanding of the other side still? And so on and so forth. So that's always been the driving motive.
John, let's go back again to this awakening experience at about 5 years old. I want to go back to it because this was the alpha and the omega moment in your young life where everything changed. Can you recall when this apparition, this older black man, first caught your attention, all you can remember about him, and as you were perceiving him like any other person that you would have perceived at that age, did you perceive him as just another person coming into your transom, or was there anything that spoke otherwise to you?
Well, what spoke otherwise to me was when he appeared in the flesh, absolutely solid, just as solid as you or I. He had clothes on. I can tell you the clothes he wore. He had this red long sleeve.
When you say he appeared, like, or just walked into the room?
No, he was, I had woken up and I didn't know why. I was sound asleep and I'd woken up in the middle of the night and wide awake, no drowsiness, no grogginess. And I wasn't groggy at all. And I was like, well, this is really strange. And my parents had put a nightlight in the bathroom that shone a glow out into the hallway. So I could see to get up and go to the bathroom at night. And I thought, well, this is really weird. Maybe there was a noise or something that woke me up. And I laid in bed and listened. There wasn't anything outside and anything in the house. And so I raised up on my elbows and just kind of looked around my room. And I thought, this is so odd. And I looked down the hallway, and in the nightlight's glow, there was this elderly black man peering around the doorway from the dining room into the hallway that led to my bedroom. And I saw him and I screamed bloody murder. And when I did, he walked around the doorway into the hall and started walking toward my bed, locking eyes with me.
Did the scream wake either of your parents?
It didn't at first. The first scream didn't. And when he got close to my bedroom door, he was every bit as solid as you or I. He wasn't wispy. He wasn't translucent. He was a full-bodied, apparition. There was a person in a body standing there. And like I say, I can tell you what he had on. He had on this red flannel plaid long sleeve shirt, khaki pants, black belt, black shoes. I knew he was elderly because he had close cropped white hair and he had a white mustache. So I knew he was old. And my presumption, I'm seeing this guy in the flesh. And I said, okay, somebody's broken into the house. So I screamed again. My parents came running. When they started to come running, he began to vanish. And then just disappeared.
Again, when you say vanish, like dematerialize or walk out of the room?
He dematerialized and just was gone. And so it was like, and even though I saw him vanish, I was so convinced that somebody was in the house still that I told my parents, I said, somebody's in this house. And my dad went and checked all the doors and windows. They were all locked and secured, nothing broken into. He looked in the closets. He looked under the beds. I mean, my fright was that real and that convincing. And they found nobody. And then it dawned on me, oh, my God, I've just seen my first ghost, you know.
John, there came a time, I'm guessing, when a presence, a ghost, made it apparent to you, perhaps, that they wanted or needed to connect with somebody in the still alive world, or that somebody approached you, a regular alive person, and said, for whatever reason, I feel you can help me connect.
Right.
First of all, for most of us, you know, even if we're people of faith, pretty much when you're dead over there. And when you're alive, here we are. It seems to me that accompanying that realization would also be a sense of responsibility, of honor. Maybe that's not the right word, but
it is an honor. Yeah, it is.
And a respect for your own abilities, to understand you have an obligation to share them, to have them serve people. And of course, many people who are in high distress. We're talking about missing the loved one.
Yes.
That, you know, can you describe to us like an early experience that fits into that matrix that I tried to describe in some way?
Yeah, and it was really strange, Peter, because here I am a child, excuse me, here I am a child and adults are coming to me for help. It's like, okay, on a spiritual level, I could deal with it and handle it, but from a childhood level, is just on a personal basis, it was like, wait, I'm supposed to be the kid coming to the adults going, how do you handle this in life? And how do you do that in life? And da-da-da-da-da. And I wasn't getting to do any of that. Adults were coming to me and going, how do I solve this problem? Is my aunt so-and-so okay on the other side? What do you see for my future? You know, how is my health? And I'm like, and I could answer those questions. I could help them with those things. I could do those things. But it was like, oh my God, this is so strange. This is upside down and backward, you know? And I think the thing that sustained me through it was, even though I had that discomfort of not getting to be the child going to the adult authority figure and learning something, but rather I had to become the authority figure for these adults. And what sustained me through that was when I would get these bits of information from the other side, and they were accurate for people and helpful for people. And it was like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And this is providing something that provides a real help for people. And if there's a prediction that I give for their futures, it comes true. It really happens. And that's something that enables people to say, wow, there is something to this. There is a higher power there watching over me and watching over things and guiding us in these ways. So
I have enough of a sense of you, even though, you know, your professional life is in this realm, also we share backgrounds as painters,
Yes.
that
Yes.
it must be extraordinary to have that realization, let's say, for the first time, where it is, as far as you're concerned, and the individual that you're interfacing with, this is rock solid.
Yeah.
You have somehow verified information to them that by no logical stretch of the imagination or trick
Right.
you had. And
Excuse me.
you have now been assured by this individual
Yeah.
that you did this thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's something
That's
else.
an amazing, amazing feeling. And excuse me, I remember the very first time as a kid when I gave people, excuse me, verifiable information that I had absolutely no way on the planet. There was no way that I could know this stuff. And that I provided them this verifiable information. And they said, yes, that was exactly the way it was. That was exactly the way it happened. I remember thinking, wow, my God, if this exists, if I can do this, and there are other people in the world that also have this gift and that can do this, why are we not so excited that these things exist, that these gifts and powers exist, And why doesn't everybody just, my God, let's research this. Let's find out how we can make this better. Let's work more towards this contact with the spirit realm, with the other side, and see what we can do with this to make life on earth better. And instead, I encountered all this skepticism and this cynicism and this religious persecution and everything else. And it was like, my God, and I grew up in the church and eventually became an ordained minister, was associate pastor for a short time of a small church, studied that Bible inside out, upside down. And in the churches that I was in, that I attended, that I preached in, that I did all these things in, I never saw anything supernatural happen. I never saw any miracle happen. But outside the churches and the prayer groups, the spirit circles, the whatever, the seances, whatever, all these physical manifestations were occurring, and all these psychic inputs and predictions were occurring. And I remember this one incident that really drove things home for me. And it's very painful to retell. I write about it in my second book, Knock in the Attic. It's very painful for me to retell. It was one of the most impactful times in my life ever, but it illustrates what I'm talking about this dichotomy with the psychic and the religious realms. And excuse me, when I was getting up into my late teens, there was I had a growing reputation as a psychic reader. People would drive hundreds of miles to come to me for an in-person reading. And there was a woman in town, and I write about this in the book. There was a woman in town that had a teenage daughter that had a brain tumor. And she had been to MD Anderson in Houston, and they had done all the treatment they could and everything. And they were constantly going back and forth to MD Anderson. And
How old was the girl?
oh, she was like 15, 16, 17, somewhere around in there. Really tragic. And her mom was friends with my mom. And she asked my mother one day, she said, I hear that your son really honestly hears from the spiritual realm and that things really happen around your son. Would he come and maybe see if he picks up anything about my daughter and pray for my daughter or whatever? My mother said, oh, God, yeah, he would. Of course he would. So I went over. I remember it was a Saturday, and this is burned into my mind. It was a Saturday afternoon that I went there, and it was one of those beautiful, clear blue sky days and just perfect weather, perfect temperature, just everything delightful. And I pulled up in front of the house, and I walked up to the door and knocked on the door. The mother opened the door, and this gloom exuded from the house in contrast to this beautiful day outside.
Oh, sure.
And I walked in, and the house was dark, and the tumor pressed on the brain, pressed on the auditory nerves, and caused the girl to be photosensitive. So they hung heavy blankets over all the windows to shut out the light. So the house is like virtually pitch black with a dim light here and there, and maybe a handkerchief or something thrown over the shade of the lamp to dim it further. So I go from this beautiful, sunny, glorious day into this dank, dark cave of gloom. And I go in, I see this girl, and she's beautiful. She's gorgeous. And as soon as I lay eyes on her, this audible voice in my head, not just in my head, but audible in my head, says, she's mine. She'll be with me within 2 weeks' time. Now, the backstory to this is that everybody in this town knew about this girl. And all the mainline churches, Baptist, Methodist, Presbyterian, all the Pentecostal churches, all the charismatic churches had all said, God has spoken to us. The Holy Spirit's spoken to us. He is going to heal this girl with a miracle. There's going to be such a dramatic revival in San Angelo that it spreads out into Texas. It may spread out into the entire U.S. Every church in San Angelo was saying that. And the spiritualist groups, the paranormal groups in San Angelo were saying, we've received visions, we've received messages, God's going to heal this girl. So everybody on the planet is saying this. And I walk in and this voice says, she's mine. She'll be with me within 2 weeks' time. And it wasn't a malevolent voice, wasn't an evil voice, it wasn't the voice of Satan or whatever. It was just this voice said, this is the way it is. And I was like, oh my God. So what do I do? So I walk in and I pray for the girl, and she's so ill that right after I leave, they're already packing to go back to MD Anderson in Houston. And so I pray for her, but I hear this voice, and I know this voice is speaking the truth. And I know that regardless of what all the churches have said, and I know regardless of what all the other psychics and paranormal people and spiritualists have said, that this is the truth. And so as I'm walking out and they're getting ready to leave, get back on the road to MD Anderson, I walk out the door, and her mother looks at me and says, did God tell you anything? Did Spirit tell you anything? Is there any hope? And I'm young, and I flung this stupid platitude at her. And I said, well, you know, God's ways are higher than ours, and we have to hang on to, you know, the will of God and the hope of God and blah, blah, blah. And I'll never forget the look on her face as she just hung her head down toward the floor and said, thank you for coming, and closed the door. And I was like, I might have well just have gone there and thrown live rattlesnakes inside. That was as much good as I would have done.
Oh my gosh.
And so I walked out to the car, and here's this bright, beautiful, sunny day. And inside, this horror from hell transpiring. And that was the thing that changed my life, changed my understanding of religion, spirituality, control, so on and so forth. And within 2 weeks, the girl was gone. She was dead. So all of these churches, all of these groups, all of these everything had unanimously said and agreed, God's going to heal this girl. There's going to be a miracle. Spirit's going to heal this girl. It's going to be da-da-da. And I walked in, and I'm not putting myself ahead of everybody else. I'm not putting myself up here and everybody else down here. Don't misunderstand that. But I walked in, I heard this voice, and I said, oh my God, the voice of truth has spoken in all of this. And it did. Within 2 weeks' time, she was gone. And people have asked me, well, was it the voice of Satan? Was it the voice of God? Was it the voice of a guardian angel? Was it a deceased loved one? I don't know. To this day, I don't know. But I know it was the voice of truth, and it spoke the truth. And within 2 weeks' time, she was gone. And that was what took my somewhat cavalier attitude toward the paranormal. Because I've got a good sense of humor. I like fun. I like jokes. I was lighthearted. I was a typical young teenager with a lot of laughter, a lot of fun. And all of a sudden, it's like, oh, dang. You know, things got really real here. Things got really serious here. And it turned everything upside down for me and gave me a different insight into the spiritual realm. And it made me understand, okay, yeah, anybody can say anything. But when push comes to shove, reality rules. The actuality of things pans out and trumps everything else. And I begin to understand that, and then I begin to look for that even harder and even more strongly. And it pushed me to the point that it was like, okay, and this weighed on me for a long time. It hurt for a long time. But I said, okay, if I'm going to exercise a spiritual gift, if I'm going to continue with this, I've got to get past that. I've got to integrate this, and I've got to understand going into future situations that it's not going to be all sunshine and roses. It's not going to be all flowers and happy, and it's not going to be, oh, you're going to meet Mr. Right and win the lottery. That's not there. Sometimes it's going to be, you need to get on the phone and talk to your dad now, or you need to take this flight and go home and see your mother this week, those types of things. And it was this beginning of this understanding of the seriousness that underlied a lot of what I had been doing, that up to then had been pretty lighthearted, had been pretty easy to do, and now it's like, oh, wow.
For many of us, it takes a long time in the process of growing up to realize, even though it's easy to say otherwise, ultimately we're all responsible for our own happiness. It can be dashed by outside forces, but one of the more poignant aspects of one aspect of faith-based philosophy is that, and many people share it, that following the full creation process, God continues on as a micromanager, that every small dot of dust in every room, that everything, he's got it on his main screen computer and the ultimate air traffic controller, and that all things happen for a purpose, even if we don't understand them. It was ultimately, for me, studying and learning about the deists, a long-established Christian leaning philosophy, which changed my life in that it validated my basic thoughts, understandings, part of the way that I understand faith in the world works, which is there are things that happen for a reason. There's a randomness to nature and the world.
Yes.
But count on the fact that nothing is more certain than change, and that always bad things will happen to good people, and good things will happen to bad people.
Oh, absolutely.
And if you try to find meaning in it, you will lose your mind.
Yeah, you'll go mad. You'll go mad because there's no rationalization. And I write about that in my fourth book, The Crying Tree and the Magic Rock. I talk about trying to do this life-saving, life-changing, life-altering thing, and it totally, completely blew up in my face and had the exact opposite effect of what I intended. And the realization I gained from that is sometimes we just, not only do we not understand the game, we don't understand the rules at all. And we're not even close to being in control. We think we have this big control. And then along come these floods that have devastated the U.S. all over this year. And so you don't have control, Along come these illnesses and diseases and the heat waves and this, that, and the other. Like, you're not in control. You're not in charge, And like you say, a really good man lives a really good life and dies early from a gruesome death. And a really horrible man lives a horrible life, murders a tons of people, and has fine cars and women, cigars, wine, trips, houses, and lives a great life. So, and one thing I write about
I think in the Judeo-Christian tradition, a lot of us hope, long, aspire to the possibility that come Judgment Day, they will get theirs.
They will get theirs,
The tradition that I grew up in, I don't have no idea.
And the thing about it is, and I write about this in my
they may get off.
Yeah. I write about this in my latest book. People have no concept of what karma is, because people think that karma is, okay, you do bad, you're going to get yours. What goes around comes around. You do good, you're going to get yours. What goes around comes around. And I researched this online, and and I cite the source in my book, Yoga Journal, and we have no concept of what karma is. That is not what karma teaches. Karma is a set of circumstances that has nothing to do with reward or retribution. And I was so shocked by that. I was like, holy cow. But it has nothing, karma has nothing to do with either reward or retribution. It's a totally different thing. And you can research it for yourself, but I write about that in my book. And we go through life with all these spiritual cliches that we cling to that do us more harm than good, you know?
That's right.
And I try and open people's eyes to these things in my book, in my books, and say, hey, look, you know, I've experienced this. I know this. I've researched this. I know this. I've proven this false. I've proven this true. And that's the main thing I try and get out to people in these books. Oh, and before I forget, I have to tell you, I write these books because I've been a storyteller since I was a kid. And I love to be a storyteller. And I love to entertain people with the truth. You can put the truth out there in a boring way. People aren't going to go after it. My books also have entertainment. And in my books, I've gotten some really great reviews, and I've got some really great feedback, and I've gotten some really great things. But the most amazing thing that's happened, Peter, is people that get my books begin to have physical paranormal manifestations, and they are related to what's in my books. Now, one example, I had this lady, my very first book, Writing with Ghost, Angels, and the Spirits of the Dead. This lady wrote me a testimonial. She wrote me an email, and she said, my mother, this book's been out 5 years now, and she said, 5 years ago, my mother bought me this book as a gift. She said, I was not in that headspace, didn't really believe in this, didn't want to read it, didn't want to hear it. It was like, yeah, whatever. And she said, but I didn't throw it away. I packed it away. And she said, John, 5 years later, I'm going through boxes and I find your book. And I'm in a different headspace, and I'm a little more receptive now. So she said, okay, I'll put this book up on my bookshelf, and I'll get around to reading this because I'm more receptive to this now. And she said, John, every day I put it up on the bookshelf. When I come out, the book is sitting on the floor in front of my door. And I pick it up, I put it back on the bookshelf, and the next day, the book's on the floor in front of my door. And she goes, this happens until I go, okay, Spirit really wants me to read this
Get
book.
the message?
Yeah. I mean, this literal, physical, paranormal manifestation is happening with my book in this person's house. And she reads the book and says, John, I begin to experience some of the identical things in my life that you did in the book. And then when I wrote The Cansack Ghost, my latest book, which is out now, I wrote about this paranormal gnat. And people can read about that. There's a whole chapter about this paranormal gnat in the book. And the message is, be careful what you count small, because miracles, miraculous things, paranormal things, supernatural things don't have to be huge to be impactful and to be important. So I write about this paranormal gnat. So one of the interviews that I'm on with a UK broadcaster, I sent him a PDF of the book. He read it for the interview, and we were discussing it, and he gets home with me. He said, John, he said, I'm reading the book. I read the chapter about the paranormal gnat. I stop and I go over to my table to do something. I stop at that chapter and I looked over and there's a gnat. And John, I don't have gnats. So people are experiencing these physical paranormal manifestations from reading my books, which is just a marvelous, fantastic thing.
John, people should be aware that folks who basically live and work in your area of study, of involvement, right. I think, we we do our best to fill in the spaces, and often, we're completely uninformed or cliche. But
Right.
I think sometimes people assume that if you do the work you do, you're always, a bit lighter than air and hocus pocusy, and
Right.
tend to be a little new agey and things, not being
Right.
aware that there is an absolute pragmatism
Mhm.
that follows like a gun sight in terms of this living with this reality.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
People tend to mystify what they don't understand.
Right.
Human history is full of it.
Yeah.
And we'll make up stories or
Oh, sure.
ascribe beliefs. However, since I was in my 20s and began to look at these questions on my own, not as a involved a practitioner, but as a student, serious student,
Right.
I decided somewhat randomly, but I didn't know where else to go, that although this all seems caught up in a world one step away from magic with no possible real disciplines here, anything approaching science,
Mhm.
I think of a great deal of the whole world of psychic phenomena as being governed by laws and rules in the physical and the next universe over from the physical that are no less absolute in some ways than that water boils at 212 degrees Fahrenheit.
Exactly.
And because we don't understand it, again, we substitute what we can.
Right.
In fact, the universe, which often seems to be spinning off in chaos, whether it's physical universe or allegorical,
Right.
and I would say, never more than right now in many respects, that in fact there is a wonderful sense of the organization if we are able to step back and observe it with a bit of objectivity. Even if we don't understand what's going on, we can kind of make our peace with it. And, for me, maybe 200-300, if we don't blow ourselves to hell in the next couple of decades, maybe there will be a time in the future where laboratories that deal in hard scientific fact and not speculation will be able to establish these laws, display them, for the scientific and community, as well as the people of faith everywhere. And we may enter a possible next chapter in this phenomena. Your thoughts on any of what I'm rambling around on here?
No, it makes perfect sense, and I agree. And the interesting thing is, like through the Rhine Research Institute, the institute that I can't all of a sudden can't think of it. Stanford Research Institute, all these places that have done scientific work, scientific experiments.
Rhine Institute, University of North Carolina.
Yeah, and have proven the validity of psychic gifts, of paranormal phenomena, remote viewing, so on and so forth. Our government had a remote viewing program because it worked. It was real. And enough people have vetted, credible people have come forward to validate that we know that that's true. The problem that we face is there are very few scientists that want to delve into that realm because they're going to tarnish their reputation. I had there's a very well-known scientist that has written some things in the paranormal realm about the paranormal realm. And it's kind of a strange dichotomy here because they're known for that, and yet they don't want to endorse that because, when you're an author and you try and sell your books, everybody thinks authors are all rich. We're not. Authors think our publishers do all the marketing and everything. They don't. That died a long, long time ago. So if you want to sell your books, you try and get endorsements from notable people. You hustle your own books and all this and all that. So this one guy that's super well known in the paranormal community. I wrote to him and I asked him if he would endorse my books, read my books, and give them an endorsement if he found them favorable.
Sure.
And he said, I can't because the scientific community would drive me into the ground. And so we have this large segment of the scientific community out there that absolutely wants nothing to do with any of this. They're of the James Randi mind. There's nothing to it. It's all nonsense. It's all BS. It's all a scam. There's nothing. And so we have that to contend with when we go to say, okay, let's get more scientific proof that this is real. And then you have people in my realm, psychics, mediums, so on and so forth, that have been denigrated by these disciplines and go, I don't want to deal with being insulted by these people. I don't want to come in and do something and say, hey, this happened. Well, that could have been the vibration from the road, or it could have been happenstance, or it could have been, instead of saying, wow, yeah, that really did. Let's see if we can replicate it. And then what science doesn't understand. Now, they are replicating things at Skinwalker Ranch. They are getting repeat results over and over again, which is kind of odd, because in my experience in the psychic, I'm not saying they're fudging it. They're really getting it, which is really neat. But in my experience in the psychic, the paranormal realm, it's difficult to replicate results because the other side doesn't perform on demand. I'll give you an example. I had and I write about this in A Knock in the Attic. I went to this haunted horse barn with people that had asked me to come investigate this place and help this person out that was having all these experiences there. And we got a ton of physical paranormal manifestations. There was no question these things occurred. Everybody witnessed them. Everybody experienced them. There was no logical, rational, natural explanation for them. I mean, like they talked about, one of the things that happens is we close the doors to the barn, shut the barn up tight, and this wind blows through the barn that raises dust and blows the hay and everything else with the doors closed. So they closed the barn up for the night. Here came this wind. I don't know. It nearly blew the hat off my head.
Gosh.
So we got all these things, and it was like, this is absolutely irrefutable evidence that this is happening. And all of these people witnessed it. They wanted me to come back with another group a few weeks later, whatever it was. Not a swinging thing occurred. Not a leaf blew on a tree. And so it's like, this is one of the things that frustrates and hampers paranormal research, is that one day you'll get a plethora of events. The next day you go, you get nothing or very little. And this is one of the things that skeptics, that cynics,
Yes.
just won't abide. They're like, okay, we're going to go. You said you saw a UFO here. You stood in the spot. Stand there again. We've got the cameras rolling. Where's the UFO? Well, it didn't come. Well, there's nothing to it. You saw Jupiter. It was a dark night. No, it was during the day. You saw a weather balloon. That's it. I'm done. We're out of here. So it was kind of like, and I write about this in my book about James Randi, and in my latest book, The Inside Ghost. And Randi was a cynic. He wasn't a skeptic. He was a cynic.
That's right.
And there was he had the $1 million challenge.
A cynic and a debunker.
Educational Foundation, right? And I watched this show, and dang it, I can't find it. I've got it recorded on a VHS tape. That's how long ago it was. But we've moved 9 times. I haven't found it. I'm not going to use my psychic gift to find it. That's a waste of energy. It's like I got better things to do. But anyways, I recorded this show, and on this show, it was James Randi did this show. It was about him, and it was about his experiences with all these various psychics. And he had a guy that said, I can psychometrize an object, read my third book, 20 Ways to Increase Your Psychic Abilities. First chapter's on psychometry, teach you how to do it. And he said, I can tell all these things about an object just from handling it. So Randi had this object that a friend had gave to him. I think it came from overseas. I don't remember for sure, but I think that's the general gist of it. But anyways, Randy said nobody knew anything about this object. If this guy could get anything from this object, it'd be unreal. So the guy gets the object and he tells him it's from your friend, it's from overseas, whatever. He tells him the origin. Now, in this special, Randy says, so far, I'm quoting here, so far this guy's batting 1,000. Randy says that. So the guy goes on and he says, there's something about your friend that's unusual around your friend's neck. And I don't remember if he said like a clerical collar, like a Nehru jacket, but he said, there's something around your friend's neck that's unusual here that maybe reminds me of like a clerical collar or something like that. And Randy said, wrong. My friend's not a priest. He doesn't wear a collar and all this. So come to find out, his friend had a proclivity for wearing turtleneck sweaters. So there was something on you. Not that many people wear turtleneck sweaters anymore. And so the psychic said, there's something unusual around the neck. There's something unusual around his neck. It reminds me of. He didn't say it was. He said, it reminds me of. So Randy says, no, that's wrong. So he said, if one thing's wrong, everything's wrong. So that's like me going to math class and getting a 90 on the test and the teacher going up and saying you failed. Wait, what do you mean I failed? I got a 90. Yeah, but you got one thing wrong, so everything's wrong. So that was Randy's rationale. So I had this, I was living in New York at the time, and I was on a radio station regularly there, and the host, who was also a friend of mine, he called me up one day and it was, hey, how you doing? We're talking. I'm like, oh, geez. I said, are we supposed to be on the air today? Did I mess up? He's like, no. I'm just calling you to tell you this. He said, guess who I'm having as a guest? Oh, I may have hazarded a guess or two. And he said, Randy. I said, James Randi, the amazing Randy? He said, yes. He said, I need you to be on the show to rock this guy's world. And I looked at my schedule and I was heartbroken. There was no way I could rearrange my schedule to be on the show with Randy. And he said, okay, well, at least give me a couple of questions to put to him. I said, okay, first ask him about this guy. And then second, ask him in your heart of hearts, if you're being totally, completely honest, haven't you ever had at least one experience in your life that you couldn't explain by normal, rational means? So, okay, so we had Randy on the show. He called me back and he said, boy, you're going to love this. He said, I asked Randy about the guy that had the object and was given him that Randy admitted was batting 1,000. And Randy said, well, we make up the rules beforehand. I make the rules. They have to agree to them. One of the things is if you get one thing wrong, everything's wrong. Now, if you get one thing wrong, everything's wrong. I made 90 on the math test. No, you got an F because you missed this one. If one thing's wrong, everything's wrong. You can't be more unfair than that. So my friends asked him the second question. He said, well, if you're going to be totally, completely honest, haven't you ever had at least one thing in your life that you couldn't explain by normal, rational means? And he said, Randy barked out this answer so loud and so terse that it nearly made him jump back from the microphone. Randy said, no, next question. And then I've had another podcast I'm on. A good friend of mine there has had Randy on that podcast twice. And he said he was the most difficult interview on the entire planet ever. So, you have all these people coming in. They're not skeptics, they're cynics. Yeah. And that's what kills our trying to move ahead and get ahead in this and do some good in this. And again, the other side, some days it shows up in abundance, some days it doesn't. And you have to understand and work with that. And the wannabe investigators that are skeptics have to understand that and work with that. The scientists have to understand, I'm not going into the lab today and pouring substance A into beaker B and getting this reaction. Tomorrow I can go in there and do the same thing. A year from now I can go in and do the same thing. The paranormal's not that. It doesn't react that way and it doesn't interact that way. And the respect that you have toward the paranormal, the less response that you're going to get.
In the world of parallel world, really, of UFO studies, obviously it's not nearly as vicious and common as it was, 8-10 years ago. Yeah. But the notion of being a skeptic as being bad, first of all, is completely wrong. You and I, above all else, have to be rational skeptics
Absolutely.
every time we're faced with, a new case or whatever.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I would describe us in our own areas as no longer having the luxury of disbelief,
Right.
which
Right.
offers an opportunity for some folks to say, well, I've dealt with a similar phenomena or situation. I know as well as I can these things are real. That's where we're going to start looking at this, as opposed to begin your investigation with the most mundane, boring, everyday possible explanation,
Right.
work your way up, etc.
Right.
But I had a question for you, in that you, from an early age, of course, understood you had these abilities.
Right.
And then at a later age, you learned about a certain American, a very well-known one, probably the most respected American psychic of the 20th century, and that's Edgar Cayce.
Yeah.
I wonder what were the circumstances where you were introduced to his readings, his work, his extraordinary track record in his predictions, and how that validated your experiences, because this was somebody who was respected, books published about and by, etc. What
Right.
was that?
Well, I had, beginning around age 11, I had a real good reading comprehension. I was raised as a reader, and I had good reading comprehension. By the age of 11, I was reading like William James, The Varieties of a Religious Experience, and understanding and comprehending.
Fabulous. Oh my gosh.
So I had this lifelong yearning for reading and learning and understanding.
Yeah.
And I became aware of Edgar Cayce. I became aware of Uri Geller. I became aware of all of these people.
Okay.
And I read all of the research on them, the articles, the books they had written, the books that were written about them. And I devoured that. I got into that, and I investigated all that. And it was more, as you say, part of that enlightenment, more of a part of that education as to, okay, this validates what I'm experiencing, and it expands on what I'm experiencing. And, we can take that, we can grow from there, and I can learn from there, and I can grow from there, and I can follow in these footsteps, that have been laid. And one of the most amazing things, I don't know if we ever talked about this before, but I met Uri Geller in person. And the really amazing thing, this is when I was living in New York. And I had read about Uri growing up, and I had read his books, and I'd read books about him, so on and so forth. And I was convinced he was the real deal, that he was not a fake. And we were living in New York, and honest to God, I don't remember how this came about. I began corresponding via email with Uri. And it wasn't a fan thing. It was like we were discussing very specific psychic and paranormal things. And it progressed to us sending snail mail back and forth to each other. And at the time, I had a website, but I didn't have my picture on the website. As far as I know, there's no picture of me anywhere on the web. So if Uri passed me on the street, unless he was exercising his psychic gift, he wouldn't recognize me from a picture or anything like that. And Uri came to New York to do a demonstration. And I told my wife, oh my God, we got to go. We got to go. We lived in Cornwall, which is upstate. It was a short drive into Manhattan. And we had the really neat thing about this now, like I say, Uri didn't know what I looked like. We bought the tickets for his demonstration, and you didn't even give your name for the tickets. You just bought the tickets and you got the ticket. So there was no record that I was going to be there or anything like this. So we get the tickets and we go. And my wife has seen and experienced all these things with me. And even so, she's like, you really sure Uri's the real deal? And I said, yes. But I said, I'll tell you one thing. If I can touch him tonight, if I can lay my hands on him, I'll know for sure if he's a real deal or not. So we're waiting for him to start. I get up to go to the restroom. And out of the restroom comes Uri. So we nod at each other. He smiles. I smile. I reach over and just pat him on the shoulder. And it's like, I got everything I need, or he's the real deal. So we get up there. He does the demonstration. I know we're running short on time, so I'll cut this short. So he does the demonstration. Everything's legit. And we get in line to get books autographed because I bought one of his books. I want him to sign it. So we get up there and it's my turn. And he looks at me and says, "Oh, yeah, the guy from the restroom." Hi. And he smiles. I smile. And he gets the book and he starts to sign it and he stops. And he looks up at me and he goes, "We know each other." And I go, "Yes." And he says, "We've never met, but we know each other." I was like, "Yes." And he said, "We've emailed back and forth." I said, "Yes." He said, not about just casual." He said, "You and I have talked about very specific psychic and paranormal things in these emails." I said, "Yes." And he said, "We snail mailed each other. You've sent me letters and I've sent you letters and packages and things." I said, "Yes." And I introduced myself and he's like, "Yeah." And everybody standing around is like, "Holy cow. Are you serious?"
You know,
So
that is, whether we like it or not, the perfect note to end on. We are out of time, John. John, if people want to know where to get in touch with you, where you'll be next, your books, what's the website to go to?
The best way to get to my books is just johnrussellauthor.com.
Very good.
It's got links to buy every single one of my books, johnrussellauthor.com. It's got links to buy my books. It's got the awards the books have won. It's got the endorsement from everybody and everything, johnrussellauthor.com.
Beautiful. My friend, great spending this time with you. I will look forward to our next get-together.
Yes. Thank you.
And for our audience, stay well, stand up for what you believe in, and I'll see you next week.